everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Gita Mary and today I am excited to be making another video in the impact analysis series. We have looked at everything from the impact of bamboo and stainless steel to fast fashion and animal agriculture, and today we'll be talking about crystals. Over the last few years the popularity of crystals has definitely been on the rise, and a lot of you guys have noticed that as well, because crystals has been requested as an impact video topic for quite a while. And that makes a lot of sense, honestly, because the wellness industry is a billion-dollar industry and a lot of consumers are starting to be curious about crystals. A lot of people that weren't interested in crystals a few years ago are now buying them. So exactly what is the impact of that? The simple definition of a crystal is any solid material in which the component atoms are arranged in a definite pattern and whose surface regularity reflects its internal symmetry, or a highly ordered microscopic structure forming crystals in all directions. The process of crystal formation via mechanisms of crystal growth is called crystallization or solidification. And the word crystal is derived from the ancient Greek kristallos, which means both ice and rock crystal. That word is furthermore derived from kryos, meaning icy cold frost. Crystals form in nature when molecules gather to stabilize and when liquids start to cool and harden. This is basic crystallization, and it happens when magma hardens or when water evaporates from natural components. Now that we've gotten the official definitions out of the way, I think this is a pretty good place to have a disclaimer real quick. So just a disclaimer of bias here. Personally, I don't find any deeper meaning in using crystals. I don't believe in cleansing chakras or auras, and I don't find any deeper healing sensation in using crystals. Now, I still want to be respectful towards other people's belief systems. I want to, I have to, and I think it's the right thing to do, but I wanted to also mention where I stand on this. I think everyone is entitled to their own personal belief, and one belief is not more wrong or any less than another type of belief. I don't have a problem with people using crystals in their spirituality. What I do have a problem with is the billion-dollar corporations that are exploiting people's belief systems in order to make a profit. Those are the ones we'll be talking about today. I have a problem with companies preying on vulnerable people who are looking for healing. My quarrel is not with crystal lovers, it's with the entire industry. An industry that in so many ways are proclaiming to be spiritual and caring about the planet, caring about our inner goddess energy, while deliberately exploiting resources and violating human rights. Let's get into it. How are crystals harvested? Yeah, for a lack of better wording, crystals are harvested by mining. And just like with any industry that uses mining, it's extremely detrimental to the natural environment. Mining small amounts of crystals as product requires huge land masses to be relocated or destroyed. This wasn't necessarily a problem when the demand for crystals was much lower, but with demand increasing, more and more natural habitat has to be destroyed in order for the mining to expand. That's a problem. And demand is rising fast. Just in the last 5 years, the demand for crystals in the US has doubled. Now, it's really hard to say mining without saying water pollution, and crystal mining is definitely not an exception. The Tyrone copper mine in New Mexico, which also supplies crystals and gemstones, is responsible for leaking 2 billion gallons of acid and heavy metals into surface and groundwater supplies every single year. Also, crystals are not a renewable resource. They take thousands, some million years to grow. So once a natural area has been stripped of its resources, it's not going to come back. At least not anytime soon. In regions affected by crystal mining, we see rapid deforestation, sinkhole formation, and overall a massive loss of biodiversity. Now, there are tons of things that you can get into when it comes to mining, and I've talked about the consequences of mining in many other videos, and they all apply here as well. What I now also want to focus on is the human rights, ethical labor aspect of crystal production, because this is really where it gets tricky. It's important to not only consider the environmental aspects of a product, but also to consider how it's made, if it's made ethically as well. And we really need to do that here, because it's not CEOs who are digging for crystals, let me tell you now. Actually, the majority of crystals that are sold to primarily Western consumers have no traceability whatsoever. They come from supply chains with absolutely zero transparency. It's impossible for suppliers and sellers to find out where these crystals were mined. And when a supply chain is this opaque, it means it is rife with forced labor, slave labor, child labor, and human rights violations. And the sad thing is that most wellness companies that are making billions of dollars take no responsibility. None. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, children as young as 7 are working in mines because their small size allows them to excavate gems and crystals for larger mining corporations. In Myanmar, the jade mining industry is being referred to as the new blood diamonds. The New York Times has called the jade mining in Myanmar for the biggest natural resource heist in modern history. The excavation of jade has helped finance bloody ethnic conflicts as well as fueled an epidemic of heroin use and HIV infections among the ethnic minorities who work in the mines, partly due to drinking water pollution in the mining villages. Madagascar's underground is rich in minerals and gemstones and crystals, while it itself is one of the poorest countries in the world. And Madagascar's export of gemstones and crystals from 2017 rose with 170%, which sounds amazing. Wealth to a country that needs it. There's just the thing that there are basically no labor regulation laws in place to protect workers. And about 80% of mining operations in Madagascar is carried out by smaller groups of family-owned operations, which means that there is no regulation at all. And it leaves a lot of room for exploitation. Workers in Madagascar have been reported to carry 60-kilo stones 4 to 5 kilometers several times a day, only to be paid $1. In 2018, nearly 17,000 people came together and signed a petition to try and push Goop into producing and selling more ethically sourced crystals. And personally, I find it very unsurprising that Goop did not react or respond to this petition whatsoever. This is definitely one of those companies that are exploiting and capitalizing on people's belief systems and spirituality, and overall just producing some really bad, in some cases dangerous products under the banner that it's wellness and health and nope. Now, as I mentioned, companies that sell crystals are very rarely able to trace the origins of their crystals through a supply chain. And often this is not done out of malice or in order to cover something up. Most of the time, it's just downright impossible. Because of the opaqueness of this industry, the traces of the products are constantly erased. So even if a buyer wants to be more ethical, it's actually extremely difficult for them to do so. And one of the reasons for that is that basically no companies are buying crystals directly from the mines. That would be the way to ensure more ethical labor, but that very rarely happens. Most of the time, companies that sell crystals are buying from other buyers and other sellers. They're buying from trade shows. So a crystal that you buy in a store might very well have had several dozen different owners before ending up with you, and no one is tracing it at all. And the thing is, legally they don't have to. There are no regulation requirements in place to make sure that this is happening because it's not a priority. We do see it in similar industries. For instance, we do see it with diamonds. They are being tracked, so you always know where it came from. It doesn't necessarily mean that diamonds are inherently ethical, because they are very, very, very much not. But at least there is a system in place to make sure that there's a level of transparency through the supply chain. Whether or not that then is completely successful, that is another issue. But with crystals, there are not even a system in place to attempt to make it transparent. Also, with crystals, there isn't a certifying body of authority that seeks to make sure that this is happening more ethically or more sustainably, etc. Like, for instance, we see with wood products or with cotton. It doesn't exist, which is pretty wild with such a high impact, high demand product. Because of the faulty supply chain and the high risk of human exploitation, I would advise people to be really cautious when buying crystals and not overconsume this product, because it is a high impact product. Just like mining silver and gold for jewelry is incredibly damaging to the environment, just like mining the minerals that we use in our electronic devices and in our cell phones is causing environmental havoc, the damages caused by crystal mining should motivate everybody to consume these products in moderation and consciously. Now, I am a firm believer in recycled jewelry, and my phone and all my electronic equipment is secondhand. And in a similar fashion, if I were to look for crystals, I would go for a pre-loved option, or at the very least consume them minimally and consciously. One thing that I found doing my research for this video that really infuriated me was that a lot of the big wellness companies are actually disregarding the critique of their supply chains, of the ethical issues in their supply chains, of the environmental destruction of mining practices, by saying or by proclaiming that consumers doesn't really seem to care. And another statement that I saw quite a lot was that a lot of other materials are also being mined and are also causing deforestation and water pollution, etc. as though that matters. As though that is not just whataboutism. It frustrates me greatly that when presented with an issue in their products, with their products, simply just disregarding it as, well, other people are also doing bad stuff, so why should we care? Why shouldn't they care? Well, they should also care, but that doesn't mean that you... Oh my goodness. This is preschool. It's preschool. As such, it's not a bad idea to voice your concern to these companies if you're buying crystals, so that they know that consumers actually care. Something that I've kept thinking over and over looking at the impact of these products is that the wellness industry is very big on human healing, of being close to nature, while the products they're profiting off of are linked directly to human trauma and absolute environmental destruction. It smells like hypocrisy. Also, one last thing, but I think it's important to reflect as a consumer as to why you are curious or intrigued or interested in buying crystals. Is it something you're curious about exploring because you're seeing it on social media a lot and it has like a trend quality to it, which it does at this point. And I think just like with fast fashion, just like with electronics, just like with any other consumer product, it's important to reflect upon why you're suddenly having this interest, and if you can find a way of consciously engaging with this interest without going out and buying tons of new things. That also applies to wellness products and spirituality as much as it does fancy new clothes, home decor. Now, it doesn't mean that you are not allowed to try new things out, to experiment with new lifestyles. You absolutely are. But the last thing that we in reality should be doing when exploring new lifestyles is going out and buying tons of new things. There are so many more things that we can engage with and learn about without buying anything. And I think that's a really important takeaway that I try to take with me as well whenever I am faced with something I'm suddenly curious about. Going out and buying new things is the last thing on the list when it comes to exploring new lifestyles, new belief systems, new routines, new anything. There's so many things we can learn without buying stuff. And that was my analysis of the impact of crystals. If you have any additional information, please leave it down below because I would love to learn more. And if you have any questions and thoughts you want to share, leave them down below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you're going to have an amazing day. Take really good care of yourselves. Until next time. Bye. Thank you so much for watching this video, and also a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys help me create green, zero-waste content, and I love you guys. You can find the links to my social media accounts down below and the link to my Patreon on this screen. Bye!